I'm 43 years old, and I never put my story out there until now. It's story time. So who is this guy, Kelly Cook, I see on social media, and why would I want to subscribe or follow him to see more? Well, it's no secret that social media is notorious for staged relationships and fake living. But with me, I've always tried to be the person that is authentic and real, and what you see is what you're going to get. So I thought I would share with you where I've come from, my journey along the way, and where I am today, and why. And maybe you can relate or not. Either way, it's okay. But I do think that people should reflect on where they are at today in their lives. Take that time to do that. You'll probably learn a lot. See, I grew up in middle America, Omaha, Nebraska. And for the first 6 to 7 years of my life, it was normal. It was just my sister and I, my parents were married, and we lived in a normal 3-bedroom house. My dad worked at Union Pacific Railroad, and my mom, who graduated high school, chose to stay home and raise us. Well, things started to change pretty quick. We started to experience financial difficulties, and we moved into a more affordable house in not so great of an area. And then I recall as a young boy, my whole life changed. My parents got divorced, and my sister, myself, and my mom had to move in with my grandfather in a not so great old area of town. His house was built in 1908, 2 bedrooms, a half bath. The shower was actually downstairs with a pipe sticking off the block wall in an unfinished basement with a drain on the floor right next to the old storm cellar. And of course, no air conditioning. My grandpa, an old switchman from the railroad, was retired and didn't have much, just the old house there and a super old Buick LeSabre. He was from a different generation. He worked long hours in the yard and then somehow raised 3 small kids all by himself as best as he knew how, because his wife had died when mom was just 9 years old. He was tough, and this is the guy I would have to share a room with for the next 5 years. We didn't have much at all, and then one day, my mom pulled my sister and I aside, and she informed us that we'd be going on welfare. But it's what she said next that I'll never forget. She vowed to us, as small kids, that she would get us off of this. This would be temporary and certainly not permanent. It's funny how you remember certain things, and back then, the government, when they gave you food stamps, they gave you a booklet, a paper booklet that you ripped the coupons out of. And I remember going through the local Food for Less grocery store and walking up to the counter when my mom was getting ready to pay, and she pulled out the booklet of food stamps, sifting through the coupons, trying to find the right amount. And I just walked away. I just walked away because, I mean, as a young kid, that's embarrassing. You get made fun of for that kind of stuff, and it hurt. But you know what? I actually kept one of those food stamps as a reminder, and I still have it to this day. My mom was determined. She had 2 small kids to take care of, and she would not let us down. She took a job for a minimum wage, filing papers at a local hospital so that, she could start her shift earlier than 8 a.m. And at night, she went back to school to become a teacher. So she took night classes, obviously in the evening, and worked during the day. And on the days that she didn't have night class, she was a 1-person janitor cleaning a local bank. I mean, picture a 5'2" woman all by herself working the night shift, scrubbing floors just so she could make ends meet. There were many days that went by that I didn't see her in a row because she was gone when I woke up and she was still out working or at school when I went to sleep. My aunt, my grandpa, or friends' parents were my transportation to and from school. And I'll never forget her car, 1980 Malibu, that had more rust spots than it did blue paint. It didn't have AC or heat, and the ceiling fabric had to be stapled in just so you could actually get in the car and not have it hit you. It was hot in summer and freezing in the wintertime. I remember having blankets on in the car, winter coats, everything, because there's no heat. I don't know how that car even started most days. And my dad. There's no question they loved us tremendously. He was around. In fact, he was one of the biggest supporters of all the sports that we played growing up, and he coached some of those teams. There was no question that he had love for us, and when my sister and I were fortunate enough to be with him on some weekends, I think he raised us the best way he knew how. He never had a good upbringing, so he didn't have much to compare it against when he became a father himself. So we were able to stay with him some weekends here and there. But that always seemed to be an adventure as, he would bounce around from 1-bedroom apartment to the next in some of the worst neighborhoods you can imagine in a major city. I've actually seen probably some of the worst that mankind has to offer as a kid. I must have been 11. I remember sitting there on the carpet eating a tuna fish sandwich at my dad's apartment and hearing some of the worst screaming you could probably ever imagine. This screaming happened right outside our door, and cops arrived, came on the scene, and come to find out that a lady had been stabbed 15 times right outside our door, probably 10 to 15 yards in the alleyway. That alleyway was trouble. There was all kinds of characters around these apartments, and I'll never forget my dad, every time I stayed with him, taking the butcher's knife from the kitchen and putting it under the bed as we slept, just in case. I could go on and on with more stories, but looking back, I just shake my head. Well, my mom graduated. She got us off welfare as promised, became a teacher for my high school years, no longer had to share a room with my grandpa. In fact, we were able to move into our own apartment, and then eventually, before I graduated, our own duplex that actually had 3 bedrooms. I owe a lot to my mom for what she modeled for me as a young boy, right in front of me. I could see with my own 2 eyes. Hard work, grit, never giving up, never being the victim. You can do anything you set your mind to. All the things I never had, the poverty, the inadequacy, the ridicule from other people, that became my identity without me even knowing it. I remember the first time I rode a bus, I was the last stop, so I got to see everyone get off the bus, and all these kids were getting off in these neighborhoods that were, I thought, they were mansions. The houses were so big. Looking back on it, they were, just middle-class homes. I'd never seen anything like that before. And I remember thinking to myself and wondering, what would that be like? Well, I made my way through high school, got into some trouble, probably like most teenagers, but I also excelled at sports. I graduated and went to play football at the University of Nebraska. And then I coached there when I got done playing. But the head coach is fired, and so when the head coach is fired, we're all fired. So I went on to get a job at Ole Miss University coaching football there. But the head coach got fired as well the first season I was there. So then I thought, most professions, if you chose to work 95 hours a week, you'd probably be pretty successful. But in that profession, you can get fired for it. So, being familiar with the Phoenix area, because I played in the Fiesta Bowl in 1999, I decided to move to Phoenix because I wanted to be the next Jerry Maguire, an NFL agent. So I did. And in doing so, I randomly stumbled into real estate, and I thought that would be a good complement to being an NFL agent. So I'll give that a whirl and try that also. Well, after being an NFL agent for several years, that never turned a profit. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to just go all in on just being the best real estate agent I could be. I then met my beautiful wife, Kristen, and we proceeded to have 3 beautiful kids. And then the coolest thing happened to me after I had my kids. I discovered my big why. Why did I work so hard? Why do I let relationships suffer because I'm not present? Why was I gone so much working? And then it hit me. My big why is that, honestly, I'm petrified of being broke, and that I refuse to ever go back to that state that I was in financially when I was a boy. And most importantly, that I will never let my 3 kids go through that. So that is my fabric, my DNA, who I've become on the planet over these last 4 decades. And this is why I chose real estate as my profession, my career, because you can work as hard as you want to, and the reward will be equal to that energy and work that you put into it. Just like sports, I love sports, and it's very equal to that. What you put in and how much you practice will equally determine how well and how far you succeed in the sport. And that is why I chose to align myself and my real estate business with Real Brokerage. It's a real estate brokerage that will reward you in multiple different ways for all of your hard work. It could be through equity in the company or a revenue share. And being the fact that some of these rewards are willable to my heirs when I'm no longer around, that creates a legacy for my family. And that is part of my why I'm with the current real estate brokerage I've moved over to, and why I get up every single day and work extremely hard. I hope my story was worth watching, and now you know the real Kelly Cook.